Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to beautiful Mallorca, where I want to read my next new to me author for this year, and it's going to be no other than Mona Awad, because I finally want to read Bunny. Now, this is a book that I'm like really scared of, but I always wanted to start with this one. I'm like intrigued by all of her books, but like this is the one that started it all, so I wanted to read this one first, but then I'm also scared because this book is kind of weird and I don't know if I'm prepared for that. So all I know is that in this book we follow a girl who goes to college or something, and she meets these other girls and they all call each other Bunny, and she gets kind of enthralled with them. So I am very, very intrigued. I do love weird, I do love horror. I hope this is like my kind of weird and my kind of horror. I really, really do. But again, this is a high risk, potential high reward situation. And we know how that went with like Blood Over Brighthaven. So we'll see. But yeah, the way this works is that I will update you when I'm 25% through the book, when I'm halfway through, 75% through, and then when I finish the book. And that way I hope it feels like we're reading it together. And I will keep this spoiler free to the like extent that it is possible, and at the end I might do a little part where I talk spoilers for the people who have read the book, but you don't have to be scared of watching this video if you haven't read the book yet. I will try to keep everything very vague and not spoil a thing for you. So yeah, let's start this journey together, and I hope I can give you some fun updates. We'll see about that. Okay, so last year I did some updates on the beach at night or like in the evening, but today there's still so many people around. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm now 25%, like more than 25% into Bunny, and I thought it would be a good time to give you an update. Now, for the people who have read the book, I'm now at the point where the kind of prom redo happens, and it was very confusing, but just so you know where I'm at right now. So let me talk a little bit more about what this book is actually about. We're following a character called Samantha, and Samantha is a graduate student, and she's working in like not poetry, but like writing. Apparently like the poetry and the not poetry writing people are like very divided there at this very prestigious school, and it's all about like very experimental writing, it seems. And so yeah, there's so many people. She's in her final year now, so she needs to start thinking about and working on her thesis, and she also has like different people around her that are all a little bit mysterious. So obviously, first of all, we have the bunnies, and the bunnies are definitely the most intriguing part. So these are for like women, girls, whatever, that are also graduate students, and they stick like very close together. We have one, the Duchess, who is kind of the leader of the group, and then we have 3 other girls, and it seems that so far they haven't really had any contact with Samantha, and they're the only people in the program, so it's like very awkward for Sam to be excluded, but also like the bunnies are so awkward themselves because they're like so close-knit, and they call each other Bunny, and they just like touch a lot and stuff, so it does sound very intense as well, and Sam isn't necessarily interested in being one of those people. Then we have a man called the Lion by Sam, and that is one of the professors, I guess, or like one of the teaching staff, and she seems to have had kind of an intense like friendly relationship with that person, and he helped her like write and stuff, but something has happened, we don't quite know what yet, and so now it's like super awkward, and Sam doesn't really know how to deal with that, and it's also like her supervisor, so she basically has avoided doing any work. She's kind of stuck with her thesis, and yeah, she's not really doing anything about it right now. And then last but not least, we have another woman called Ava, I think, and she was an art student, but she dropped out because she thought it was like all too much, like all the rich people, it was sucking the enjoyment of her art. out of her, and so she and Sam became like very good friends. They moved in together, but at the beginning of the book they're at this like function, like this beginning of the semester thing where Sam just really wants to show her face, but there is like an incident and the bunnies notice her, and the next day she gets an invitation to join the bunnies, and because of that the relationship with Ava derails a little bit, and it's also like very unclear what's going on there and what Ava's deal is in a way. So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by all of that. It's all very strange, but I was worried that this was a book that is kind of hard to read, and I don't find that at all. I think it's like a very engrossing story. Once you get into it a little bit, it's very easy to fall into it. I didn't have any problems at all today reading quite a bit of it at the beach, where, you know, I'm not like at my highest like mental capacity and just like relaxing and chilling. So it's going really well. I really like the writing style, which makes me super excited for the other books by the author as well. So far it's really good. It's really strange. I think the prom thing is like the introduction into how strange things will get now, and I'm very intrigued to see how far that develops and like how crazy things will get, because I expect it's going to be hell of a crazy. Like this was already a lot. I have no idea what was going on, and so yeah, we'll see. But I'm very excited to read more and let you know how it goes. Okay, so I am now halfway into Bunny, and it is so interesting, but also very confusing. Now, I just reached the point where we have a little bit of an Ava intervention, if you know what I mean. So you can kind of picture where I am right now. So definitely this second quarter of the book is like very, very interesting, to say the least. Like the stuff that is going on is so not what I expected. It almost has a little bit of a Franken bunny vibe to it. Like it's very, very strange, but I'm still enjoying it. I really like the way that the writing is used to kind of show the mindset of our main character, how things are changing in a way, and the writing is always changing with that, and it is very kind of intrusive in a way now in that second part, where our main character is getting into more contact with the bunnies and kind of like seeing what's going on and all of that. So I really have no idea where the book is going with all of that. I feel like now at the halfway point where we have this, like, as I said, like this Ava intervention is what I'm gonna call it. It could go into like different directions right now, because yeah, maybe something like a spell could be broken, but also maybe not. So yeah, things could stay very weird and very interesting for a little bit longer, I guess. So I'm definitely intrigued to read more. I feel like our main character of Samantha does stay a little bit, I don't want to say bland, but just like unknowable in a way, because she doesn't really get the page time to really show us who she is. I think she does have a bit of a need to fit in, but at the same time there's like very strong feeling that she does not fit in. But apart from that, I don't really have like a super good grasp on her as a character. We do learn a couple of facts about her kind of life story, that she grew up quite poor with her mother, but then also there was like this time in her life when she did have a little bit more money because she was living with her father, and he was kind of like living a little bit of a high life, I guess, and taking her along. And so yeah, I feel like I don't know her at all yet. And I don't know if there is really room in the book to explore that, but it's just so fascinating to like see what is going on. And I don't expect there to be like a ton of explanations of how this all came to be or anything like that, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see what the hell the second half of this book is going to be. And I am still intrigued to read the sequel. I know that people have said that the sequel kind of takes the magic away a little bit because I think it is told from the perspective of the bunnies. I'm not quite sure, but I am still open to it because, like, with all of the stuff that is going on, I'm just so intrigued to see what this all is. So yeah, I'm gonna continue reading today and then I'll update you again. So I'm now 75% into Bunny and what? What's happening? What's happening? So, if you want to know, I just finished the dinner with Max situation. This is all so interesting, confusing. I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm definitely having fun though. It was definitely a blast to read that third quarter today at the beach. I think that it is such a really like fascinating, engaging read, and I have no clue. I have no actual clue what is like happening and where the story will go now because yeah, as we have Max enter the scene, everything's kind of like even more up in the air than before. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what's happening? What do we do with him? So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued. We still also don't quite know what happened with the lion character, and I am intrigued to see whether we will ever learn. I am intrigued to see what will happen with the bunnies now, because yeah, I'm having some thoughts about Max and the bunnies, so we will see about that. But yeah, there's really nothing much I can say. I think that I mentioned in my update this morning that the halfway point is kind of like it could go either way, and it kind of went both ways in a way. It's like very strange, and I can't really put it into words, but it's definitely just going. It keeps going, and it's not like the story doesn't make sense. You're like really in the flow and you're following everything, and then you have these moments where you're like, huh, but like, huh? Like for example with Ava, and I don't want to like go into any details, but there is this moment where you're like very sure what's going on with Ava, and then something happens around Christmas, and then something happens again, and then you're not so sure what happens with Ava. And it's like all kind of like, the things make sense while you read them. But if you take a step back, you're like, do they actually make any sense? So yeah, I'm so intrigued to read the ending now. So that's also why I decided to film in this like not fun location right now, because I just want to get it over with and then read the last couple of chapters, because now I definitely need to know what's happening, how this will end. So I hope I can finish it today, and if not, I will finish it tomorrow. Tomorrow I don't think I will go to the beach. I think tomorrow I'll do a little trip around the island, so it will probably not be a reading day, and that's why I wish I can finish it today. We'll see. So yeah, let's read those last couple of chapters. Okay, so I did finish Bunny last night, and I wanted to give you my final update on the book. However, again, the beach is still full of people. I don't know, like behind me there is a family. I think they're about to leave, so let's see. But yeah, I really enjoyed the ending of Bunny. I had a very, very good time. Now, this book is definitely a little bit unhinged and like nothing that I had read before, but in a good way. Like, I thought it would be maybe complicated or, just like unpleasant to read, or just like so confusing that I wouldn't even enjoy it. But in the end, that wasn't the case. I did actually really like it. I thought it was very easy to read. It was actually quite a fun beach read because it was one of those books that are very hard to put down and you just like really want to know what the hell is going on. And I felt like it always introduced like kind of new elements when things would get a little bit too weird or like too samey. I think that the ending is definitely out there in a way, but also it fit the story, and some parts of it about like wanting to fit in and kind of like having that one friend that, you know, it's the friendship and stuff like that. It almost made me cry a little bit at the end as well. So yeah, it was definitely more emotional than I thought. And while I don't know like, you know, what exactly happened in this book, like you don't really need to know, you know, the story is kind of full without answers in some regards, and so I think you still get like enough of an ending to have like a satisfying reading experience. Now, because I like this one, I think what I want to do is I want to actually read the sequel. And I think I will read the sequel for this vlog. However, I won't talk about it in that much detail. I'll probably just give you like 2 updates maybe when I read it. It will probably take a little while just because it is checked out from my library right now, so I did put it on hold, but it will take a while to come in, so I probably won't be here anymore and give you like beautiful beach updates, but I think that's alright. So that will be at the end of this vlog. But before we get to that, I think I want to talk a little bit about spoilers, especially about the ending. So for the people who have read the book, we will discuss it a little bit more, and if you haven't, you can use the chapters to jump over this bit if you want to hear my thoughts on the sequel. So for Bunny itself, I gave it 4.5 stars. It wasn't perfect in my opinion, but it definitely was like such an intriguing start with this author, and I definitely want to read more Mona Awad. Like basically all of her books are intriguing to me, so I think I'm gonna try publication order, probably just read more. So let's talk a few spoilers before I try to read the sequel. So I think, yeah, what can you even talk about with this? As I said before, like so much of this feels like very connected when you read it, but then when you step back and you start thinking about it, it starts to feel like very random. But I think the like twistiest twist, there is probably some. Like the first thing that I absolutely did not see coming is that the bunnies are actually using bunnies to try to create boys or like drafts or whatever. That was like something that I absolutely had not on the cards for this book, and I thought it was so fun that it managed to surprise me in that regard, because I was really like, wow, that is what we're doing here. Okay, like I expected this to be kind of like about, you know, clique, maybe a little bit of the hive mind, even though I don't think that really played such a big role in the narrative in the end. But yeah, I did not see the whole like Frankenstein vibe that we had going on with these boys. And I think the way it got introduced as well, you know, when you have Samantha waiting in the living room and she hears these weird noises and there are these weird boys that don't seem quite normal. It was like, oh my god, what's going on? So yeah, it was very, very intriguing and also very gory. I think that's the only part that was really like horror to me, because it got very gory. And obviously if you love animals, maybe not the best book to read, I guess. But then I think what is way more like interesting and way more of a twist is the whole situation with Max and Ava. So with Max, I think it was quite obvious that he is the stag because of the way the eyes are described, both for the stag and then also for Max and all of his other names. I think that the way he had that wolfishness about him threw me off a little bit in between. I was like, okay, maybe he's not the stag, maybe he is a wolf, but like definitely not a bunny. So I guess that was quite interesting. I think the way that he asked to be slaughtered in the end and then he returned back to his animal form was a little bit weird, because like that didn't happen to any of the other animals. So I was like, okay, that maybe a little bit plot convenience here because we need him to do something, but then also he was the only one who had the X symbol on his neck. So maybe it is something that was even present in his creation. I mean, as I said, we don't really get any answers of how this is happening or why. I mean, it would have been nice to have at least a little bit, like for a time. I was thinking about this, like teacher, the whatever she's called, care teacher, that maybe she's involved in that maybe she had like some secret thing she gave the bunnies so that they could like figure this out or something. But yeah, we don't really have any answers of that. No, there's like two girls right there. So yeah, I felt like with the stack it didn't make like too much sense, but like also you don't read this for it to make sense. And then the like bigger twist, I guess, is that Ava is the swan, and I think in a way you kind of feel that Ava is off. But it's like, okay, is she just like this very artsy random person, or is there something off with her, like in general, like completely? And so yeah, I didn't see it coming that she is the swan, but I liked it and I didn't like it in the end. But like, as I said, I just really liked the feelings that were discussed with her in the end, but I don't know how like I felt about the whole scene. Like, it was very sad in the way she got axed off, I guess. So I guess in the end, I don't know how much this was actually about the bunnies, and maybe that's also why I want to read the sequel, because I feel like in the end it wasn't as much about the bunnies as I thought it would be. And I feel like, because like the hive mind thing is like very, very short in a way, because then Ava kind of rips Samantha out of it again, and we don't really see it come back. And then Max obviously goes in and he completely destroys it, and we don't see none of that. And that is the part that I really wanted to see a little bit more of, like what Max was doing and how he was kind of getting between the bunnies. So I hope that this maybe is more explored in the sequels, or the sequel, which is one. So I guess that is why I want to read it. But yeah, overall, I just had a really, really fun time with this book, and I would highly recommend if you like the weird, if you like the horror. I guess we'll talk again once I have the sequel in my hands. So we had to say goodbye to the beautiful backgrounds because it is actually already quite a few weeks later. But I also still wanted to talk about We Love You Bunny in this vlog. And I had imagined that I would, check it out from the library, sit down, fly through it as I did with Bunny, because I enjoyed it quite a lot. And I could not be more sad to tell you that the first half of this book so far has been a big struggle for me. Now, let me start at the beginning. In We Love You Bunny, we are a little bit later in the timeline. So Samantha has published her book, which is basically Bunny, and she's on a book tour now, and she is coming back to the town where she went to university, where she met the bunnies. And after she did her book event, she kind of gets kidnapped by the bunnies, and they are now trying to tell her their side of the story. So for the first, I don't know, maybe third or not quite third of this book, we do get kind of the same story we already know, but we get it told from the bunnies in turn. I did like it at the beginning. I did like kind of the snarky tone. I do love me a second person narration, and in this we kind of have that. We have like a first/second person narration because the bunnies are talking to Samantha about their own experiences, and the tone is like very snarky, very like as if they were actually talking. And I did enjoy the beginning of this, but then I was like watching my slow progress that you can see on the e-reader, and I was like, how freaking long is this book? Because it really started to drag at some point, because we already kind of know this story. We know what the bunnies were up to, we know what they were doing, and this is kind of like how they even figured out what to do in a way. And it's kind of a little bit boring actually, and also because the tone, it kind of like cannibalizes itself a little bit. Like at some point, I'm just over it. So I was definitely fighting my way through that. Now, after that part, we start into the second part, which is told by a character called Arius. Now, I don't want to say too much about this because this is actually kind of the thing that we don't know when we start the book, I guess. So I don't want to say too much about this. What I want to say is that I think the Arius part got more interesting content-wise for me, but a little bit more jarring reading-wise. And if you're reading the book, you probably know what I mean. The writing style in those parts is very, very distinct. And it is, it's kind of an art. You do understand what is happening and why it is written in this way. It absolutely makes sense. But it's also very different from how you would usually read like a novel. You know what I mean? So it is definitely an interesting experience being in this part now. And content-wise, as I said, this is more interesting to me because this is kind of a side of the story that we do not know anything about yet. Now, in this Arius part, we also get kind of a character mentioned as Mother, and I must admit, it took me a while to figure it out, but then something else was mentioned that I'm not going to mention here because I don't want to spoil anything for you if you decide to read this book, but there was something mentioned where it clicked in my head and was like, okay, now I know what's going on here and who this Mother character is. I can't say I'm really enjoying this book. What I can say is that I see that Mona Awad is doing something here, that there is a theme, that there is a logic to what she is exploring. And I would say that with Bunny, we have that as well. But with Bunny, I think you can enjoy the story for what it is, because it is a very good story. However, there is this hidden layer where it actually talks quite deeply about writing and about how you learn writing in these elite universities and kind of like how they talk and stuff, which is a context I know absolutely nothing about, and I'm honestly also not very interested in, but that is kind of also like the dark academia aspect that you have in that book. And so in We Love You, Bunny, we are still exploring these concepts while the story is just not that intriguing and not that fun to read if you do not fully embrace kind of like what it's actually trying to say. And I just feel like I don't quite get what it's actually trying to say. So I'm just trying to make it through the story, I guess. And I am missing quite a bit of what it's doing. And I can acknowledge that and still not be able to understand everything it's doing. So it is an interesting experience for sure. And to me, it almost feels like Mona Awad felt like people didn't kind of appreciate enough with Bunny what she was actually trying to say. Like people were more stuck on how fun the story is, that she was like, no, wait, I'm going to write the second book where you have to look at what I'm trying to say here. That's kind of like what it feels like. So I will continue on, but it's definitely not very exciting. Like the prospect of reading another, 200 some pages of this is not very exciting to me, but I will do it for you and for me because I can't DNF. I just can't. And then I'll be back and we'll talk again. So I finished reading We Love You, Bunny, and we have come to the end of the vlog, which is always very exciting for me. Okay, so We Love You, Bunny. I must say, I did really like the ending. The ending was actually really good, and it even made me feel some things. It made me a little bit emotional, if you know, Bunny. But yeah, I did enjoy the ending. I also must admit that this book is just way too long. Like we did not need over 450 pages to get to that ending. definitely not. So it is a mixed bag for me overall. I decided to give it 3.5 stars. For a long time, it felt like a 3, but I feel like the ending elevated it a little bit. Everything that I said before definitely still stands. I think that Mona Awad really did something with the book, but it wasn't necessarily in a way that made it a successful book for me. And I think, as I mentioned, that you could have done it in fewer pages, and specifically I think I would have loved this book if we would have just focused on Arya's story, maybe even without really knowing how it would connect to Bunny. I feel like everything else we get in this book is just so unnecessary, and those were the parts that like I really struggled through. I really had to push myself to get through, and I just really didn't get much out of it apart from like the meta kind of stuff that Mona Awad tried to push into our brains, I guess. So yeah, overall, I would say I still liked We Love You Bunny, but I totally understand the people who DNF'd this book because the beginning parts are definitely the challenging ones, which is like not very smart for your book. I think once you get to areas, if you still do not care at all, then you probably won't like the book. But I liked that it was gay. I liked that it had this like very, very unique perspective of areas that we get in here. I also kind of liked just the I don't know, like the vibe of the final, I don't know, maybe 20% of the book. That was just nice. I just enjoyed that. So yeah, mixed bag. I would say if you really loved Bunny, it doesn't mean you have to read We Love You Bunny. I don't think that it adds a ton of the stuff you probably enjoyed in Bunny, and it just explores kind of a very different story that is linked to Bunny in a way. That's how I would probably describe it if you haven't read it. So yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say for the spoiler-free review of this book. I think I want to go into a few spoilers at the end here. I don't know. I think I did that for Bunny too, right? I should have. So yeah, if you haven't read We Love You Bunny, then I thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun exploring these two books with me. Kind of finishing another series as well, which is great. And yeah, thank you so much. Leave a like if you enjoyed this journey. And in the comments down below, let me know, have you read Bunny? Have you read both of the books? Like, what are your thoughts? For the people who have read We Love You Bunny, I try to keep it short as always. I tend to ramble on way too long. So we start out this book by going through the 4 bunnies, and I must say that I think I enjoyed the first 2. I think it's Coraline and Kyra. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce the names. I kind of enjoyed their perspectives, but then it gets like just like very repetitive, and the writing style really cannibalizes itself for me. It's like very much the tone as the bunnies would speak. So you have a lot of K, and you have a lot of like Bunny and stuff, and that got like old very, very fast for me. I also already in Bunny did enjoy the leader of the bunny group the least. I just really don't like her kind of like stereotype, the kind of like character arc we get with this character. I really don't like her. I think Elsinore. I don't know how you would say that name. So yeah, I just at that point I was like so struggling, and I was not like enjoying it. And then we get into the areas bit, and for one thing, I must say that I didn't get the allergy medication thing. I didn't get it until Arias talks to Alan. I didn't get it. But yeah, Arias, we follow his journey, and I think that, you know, if you enjoy Frankenstein, you probably enjoy Arias' story. It again has this like very distinct writing style, but I think it has this innocence to it that like really shines through in a way. And we can see how Aries is kind of fighting with his own brain because he has so many thoughts that are not his own, but he is like fighting to be free of it. And especially when he's like fleeing from the bunnies and he has these moments when he thinks like, oh, maybe I just hurt them. The kind of anxiety he feels it always felt like very visceral to me. Like I could feel his anxiety and his dread and his fear of like being in this situation again where he is kept by the bunnies. So I did really enjoy that. And then through this like very tumultuous journey that we follow, we do have Aries and Jonah meet. And Jonah for me is honestly like the secret star of the bunny series. He's such a cute character, and it's like because Aries loves him instantly, it's like so easy to love Jonah too. And I just really liked kind of their relationship as it is portrayed, and I really liked that we see the struggle, that they're like really not meant to be together and they're not even like from the same world in a way, but that they still feel so drawn to each other while respecting that this is not endgame basically. And I just thought that was like so well done to make us root for a couple that we know won't happen, but it's not like anyone's fault, if you know what I mean. Like it was really, really well done, their relationship. I loved that so much. And then we do get the whole situation with the mother. Now, also, it took me a while to figure out who mother was, but obviously at some point it like really clicks and you understand. And I don't know, like I had a bit of a funny feeling about the two teacher figures we get in this book, because in the end, Alan really seems to be like the good guy here, and it was a little bit weird to me, like I don't know. But yeah, in general, it's just like kind of the critique of this like very elite kind of academic setting for writing, and kind of how detached they are, and also the like entitlement of the bunnies is so visceral and disgusting. But at the same time, you also hate the teacher lady because she hates her students, and it's like honestly not really their fault that she's in a position to teach them. And if she doesn't want to do that anymore, then she could just do something else, you know what I mean? So I feel like this book is very interesting in the sense that you probably won't like most of the characters. And then you have Aries, who isn't even human, where you kind of like him, which I thought was so interesting as a reading experience. So yeah, the heart of the story, for lack of a better word, definitely was the relationship of Jonah and Aries for me, and also kind of like that poet that then comes to visit Leonard. Leonard and Aries also have such a interesting dynamic, and I just loved them so much. I thought it was so cute. And then right at the end, we have this moment where Aries is kind of understanding how he can go back to his garden, and on that way behind the philosophy building, he meets up again with the Tyler boy that he accidentally killed because he thought it was Alan, and how they then go on this journey together to become bunnies again together. It was so cute. I really, really loved that part as well. And so yeah, it made me feel a lot of things. Like there were a lot of like kind of like metaphors at the end, but like also just Aries' struggle to figure out who the hell he is and why he's feeling the way he's feeling. So I enjoyed those parts a lot. I did not care for the bunnies, like their whole stick was very boring to me, and the kind of way that they were trying to get revenge on Sam, but then also just get Sam to get their book published, but then it also wasn't really their book, it was like Arias's book. So I really didn't need any of that, to be honest, and it didn't really change, or maybe it did change how I saw the bunnies, but for the worse, I guess. But yeah, I really didn't like that part. And then at the ending, we do have kind of that twist again that it was never Sam, that it was also a bunny. And Sam kind of used the bunny as a decoy in a way, as a red herring or whatever. And yeah, I just don't think that this twist was as well done as the like swan thing in the first book. I think if you just take Arias' story and leave all of that other stuff out is so much better. So yeah, I don't know what I would recommend to someone who hasn't read the book. Like just read Arias' parts, ignore the rest. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. I'm glad I read the book. I would love to hear all your thoughts in the comments, but make sure if you write about spoilers to mark it clearly in the comments, like write spoilers, hit enter a couple of times so people don't get spoiled by accident. But I would love to hear from you. I would also love it if you give this video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!